All right, we'll move to public comment. We are limited to 2 minutes per person. I'll just read the rules. As always, a comment can express support or dissent for regulatory action. Individuals should not use public comment to complain about personnel issues or attack or defame an individual. Speakers making a highly detailed or complex comment should also consider providing a written outline of their words to the board. Please remember that children may hear your comments. Be thoughtful and professional. Keep your comments appropriate for a general audience. If you have material with explicit language or content, please submit that material in writing to the board at publiccomments@schools.utah.gov. Okay, first on the list, we have Kevin Koros. I think by Zoom. You with us, Kevin?
Yes. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Am I good to go?
You are. Welcome.
Okay. Hi. Hey, good morning, board, and thank you, chair and committee members and board members. Sorry. My name is Dr. Kevin Cruz. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I'm speaking about two things. First, last time I spoke last month, I was told I received the golden ticket, but I'd never received my lifetime supply of chocolate. So please let me know who I'm supposed to reach out to for that. I appreciate it.
I think that would be member Booth.
Okay. And I also wanted to make a comment on R237. Okay, it's on repeat there. Initially, I was going to make some comments about ideological arguments, but in just some careful thought, I just realized kind of what's the point. And also, I'm just kind of tired of seeing politics in our educational decisions. They should be about students. My son's turning 4 years old on Sunday, and he's just about to start his educational journey in Utah Public Schools. And it concerns me to think about what that's going to look like for him throughout his journey. So I am a little angry that the Utah legislature wants to override rules that you all make, who committee members elected to make those decisions. And I just hope as you all move forward with this, that we put students' interests first over politics, and understand that not every rule can satisfy every need, just like not every intervention can satisfy every need. And we might need multiple rules. And I also think that it would be helpful for the board to implement some measures to assess the impact of the policies or rules that they make. Because a lot of what we heard from last month was, there's no evidence of its impact. And so I think that having some sort of way to measure impacts of new rules or changes would be very helpful in making some data-informed decisions on what's best for Utah students. So I do appreciate your time, and thank you for the work you are doing for Utah students. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Renee Pinkney.
Go. The green light is on. Good morning, Chair Moss. Vice Chair Earl is here, I know, and Vice Chair Hart, and fellow board members. Renee Pinkney, a proud history teacher, serving as the UEA president. And I am here to ask for your support for House Bill 221, Stipends for Future Teachers. That is being sponsored by Representative Karen Peterson. UEA is incredibly grateful to Representative Peterson for collaborating with us and sponsoring this bill. I recently spoke to an aspiring educator and asked them, what could this mean in the future? And he said, a grant will increase accessibility to student teaching programs for aspiring educators who come from economically underprivileged backgrounds. It may allow student teachers to dedicate more time and energy to their student teaching, leading to better outcomes for themselves and their students, and grants may incentivize more individuals from all backgrounds to pursue teacher preparation programs, which will build a more qualified and resilient force of professionals to face the shortages of teachers in the state of Utah. And I remember doing my student teaching, I don't know, 30 years ago or so. And my cooperating teacher would introduce me to other teachers at Woods Cross High School, and he would say, "This is Renee. She works for me for free." So I think we can do right by our aspiring educators and give them the opportunity to go through their student teaching program and offset the cost for their tuition that they are still paying. Many of them don't realize they are going to have to quit their jobs and they drop out of their programs. And we really need highly qualified educators in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Cody Eflin.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I come before you today as a parent in Tooele County. I want to share my deep concerns and frustrations regarding the $50 million budget cut that has hit the Tooele County School District mid-year. In 2017, Tooele County District began a partnership with MyTech High. Challenges emerged over time, leading to a decision to not renew the contract with MyTech High for the 23-24 school year. Following this decision, the district continued to adhere to the state's own approved budget process, a routine practice that districts have followed for years. Per Utah State Code, funding relies on a combination of prior year enrollment numbers and current year growth. The state provided the district with estimated budget numbers in April of 23, which the district used to build its budget for the current school year. The budget was presented at a budget hearing in June and approved in August by the state. Despite this, November 28th, the district was notified of an unprecedented mid-year budget cut that was retroactively reflected on the current allotment just 2 days later. A sudden 25% cut in the middle of the school year is not an acceptable way for the state to clarify its own code. To compound my frustration further is the inconsistency in how other districts, which have also decided not to renew online contracts, were treated differently. When Tooele County School District acquired students leaving Provo School District in 2017, Provo received full funding for those students, while we're now being retroactively denied the same. I urge the board to consider the impact these budget cuts are having on the ability for kids and teachers and the families of Tooele County for our students to have the same right for that education. Thank you.
Thank you, Cody. Wendy Hart.
There we go. Okay. Thank you, board members. My name is Wendy Hart. You've received several emails from me based about the math standards. So I just wanted to address you again. This is very important to me. I would ask you to please adopt the California 1997 Green Dot standards for our new math standards. They have a track record of over a decade of being able to increase enrollment and completion of Algebra 1 at the 8th grade level, as well as reducing the achievement gaps in the different demographic groups. Let's not experiment on our kids any longer. The 2010 standards were rated as developmentally inappropriate by over 500 K through early education experts for the grades K through 3. Our new math standards should have the goal to prepare all students to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, to teach overriding concepts in a logically coherent manner so that each concept builds on the previous one. Allow the standard courses of Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 instead of integrated math. Do not use calculators. Math is about patterns. They are very hard to see if you're using decimals, and calculators require fluency with basic math facts, especially multiplication. Remove the standards for mathematical practice and do not stipulate how a concept is to be taught. And most importantly, adopt standards that parents will be able to help their children learn. But all that aside, I am here today because for over a decade of hearing stories of children and parents who have struggled with math in our school system. There are not just a few experiences, there are hundreds, and they occur on a fairly regular basis. Just this past Monday, I was in an appointment where a woman told me of the struggles of her 7th grader that he was having in math. There is a young man who has always been successful in school and takes great pride in his accomplishments, but he will no longer even try to do math and is convinced of his inability. There's a young college graduate who informed me that she would have tried for a STEM field if she had felt more confident in math. And there's the young man who has rejected college altogether because of his K-12 experiences, despite being able to grasp the concepts of calculus, but not the foundations behind it. Story after story. So my plea again is to adopt something tried and true. Let's not reinvent the wheel, and let's not experiment on our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Lexi Cunningham. We'll come back to Lexi. Julie Clough with Utah PTA.
Good morning. I'm Julie Clough. I'm president-elect for Utah PTA. And I have to admit, this meeting snuck up on me. I can't believe it's March or February 1st. Don't know about you guys. Super busy, but happy to be here. I always try to prepare, but I don't like to read, so I might just summarize. We've been going crazy. I wish Corey was here today, but she's at another meeting, and so is my education commissioner, and so is my advocacy director. So we're all kind of going different directions today. But I wanted to share some positives that are happening in our school. We have some great PTA things happening. I encourage you to, if you have time, to go look at the Utah PTA Facebook page and look through our regions as they've been sharing the positives that are happening in their schools. Some of the highlights that I have enjoyed are the things that they're doing with their school mascots and the diversity walks and their fundraisers and their spirit nights and their parent nights. They're connecting with their communities and they're building their communities, and I love to see that. This fall, I shared with you guys the 2022 volunteer hours report. It was just a little over 700,000 hours that was given to the schools on behalf of parents volunteering in the classrooms. On January 9th, we had the opportunity to present a symbolic check to the governor for $30,699,020.40, which represented 965,000 hours of volunteer service to our schools. I share that with you because that amount and those hours represent the dedication of thousands of parents who believe in and support public education and value the partnership that we have together. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Curtis Linton.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me be here today and make a comment. And may I begin by thanking you, Board Member Booth, for what you shared this morning, especially highlighting Malia Bonner and his son's experience in the classroom. It's very relevant to this month and to the conversation. I speak today in regards to draft 2 of R277328. And first, I honor the board for making the necessary changes to bring it into compliance with the law. All in all, I would ask all of you to support draft 2. With that expression of support, I also want to talk about the challenge that I see with this rule, and really with the political efforts in the legislature and even that have hit this board. My challenge with draft 2 is that it primarily focuses on making sure that majority students feel comfortable within the school and the learning environment. There's not a lot of language in there to ensure safety of marginalized students. Being uncomfortable in a tough discussion is very different from being unsafe in school. And let me just share 2 experiences within the past 2 weeks. First, my daughter, 2 weeks ago, black daughter, was walking through her high school, and white girls were walking down the hall chanting with their arms locked, "We are African slavees, we are African slavees." My daughter had to take and live that. She's one of the only black students in her high school. 2 weeks ago, in a middle school here in Utah, a white student asked a black student if he could have the M pass. The black student said no and explained why that is wrong. The white student said, "Oh well," proceeded to call him the N-word and continued to harass him despite the intervention of the principal for 2 weeks. Last week, the black boy had enough. He pushed back. physically pushed back at the white boy. They ended up in a fight. The black boy's arm was broken, and they were both suspended for engaging in a fight from a situation which began with racial harassment. I ask you that whatever happens today with R277328, that you redouble your efforts to ensure that there is safety for students who are showing up at school with an identity which might not match their peers. Move forward with everything you are doing, pass draft 2, keep it in place, but please consider that just because you or your children may not have experienced some of these things, it may be highly impactful on students who are experiencing these things. Thank you much for this consideration.
Thank you, Curtis. Cordero Baxter.
Hi. I'd like to briefly address the decision of the UPPIC to deny my background for initial teacher licensure. The minute I received notification that my background was subject to review by UPPIC, I immediately stopped everything that I was doing and sent court documents and police reports and a personal narrative, everything that was requested. But it took nearly 3 months of back and forth communication between myself and the UPPIC just to have the UPPIC recommend that my background be denied. Over the 3 months, there was a denial that the state provides enough resources to adequately review backgrounds in general. There was anger towards me for quote unquote refusing to cooperate, for providing too much information intentionally. There was name calling where I was called fragile and incompetent. There was bargaining and asking me how the UPPIC could help me to help myself. And what there never was understanding. I told the UPPIC that on my background, nothing there involved any other person. All the crimes were crimes of being a nuisance or being harm to myself. And they're better explained from what I told UPPIC by attempts to establish dominance and deviance in society. And at the time when I got these things on my background, I actually was a victim advocate, and I was a part-time social worker at a group home, a boys group home for sex offenses, and really sensitive to issues. And since then, I've moved on to enroll in an MAT program in special education, where I hope to be able to do student teaching and realize that not every fight is my fight. And as a matter of fact, nothing that is relevant to any reason for the denial of my background check is my fight anymore. So, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Cordero. Next, Monica. Oh, we've got Lexi Cunningham, then Monica Wilbur. Going back up to the top if Lexi's with us. There we go.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Chair Moss, Vice Chair Hart, members of the board, Superintendent Dixon, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Today, you will be talking about an agenda item, data sharing for advertising, school options, and potential amendments to board rule. I would just like to share that we do have some concerns about this idea of data sharing for advertising. We understand the purpose of the rule, but when we are talking about data sharing for advertising, that really takes us into a different realm that we haven't been before. We'd like you to consider in your conversations what that's going to look like. Please know that we have districts that currently do not allow any data to be shared for advertising purposes. And so you will be asking districts to either rewrite or break a board policy that they currently have. We are also hearing from parents that not all parents are aware that this is taking place. And so we would like to know how the board will be advertising this to parents, that their data will be shared, whether it's in an opt-in or opt-out. Concerns about where will you draw the line with data sharing for advertising? Is it just for charter schools? Will it be for homeschool students? Will it be for Utah Fits All? There's just a lot of questions there. If you do decide to amend your board rule, we ask that you own the decision and that you put into place a process where you, as the state board, can manage this and not pass this responsibility on to the districts. They already have a lot to do, and this could become much more difficult than you imagine. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Lexi. Monica Wilbur.
Good morning, Board. Dr. Andrew Johnson, Professor of Literacy Instruction at Minnesota State, has called the science of reading a boondoggle. He shares my concern that flawed science of reading approaches pushed by Acadians and Lexia are harmful as they misapply literacy research in the classroom, creating functionally illiterate children. Thanks to SB 127 early literacy amendments, we've seen Utah adopt science of reading edtech programs, which create what Dr. Johnson calls, quote, grapheme, phoneme, guessing games, end quote. That hyper-focus on phonics at the expense of balanced literacy approaches. They also exhibit a depraved neglect of whole text classical literature. Finally, these corrupt SOR programs seriously undermine the natural process of creating meaning from the printed word. These tech-based gamified approaches to reading are deficit-based and unnecessary for upwards of 90% of readers. They only succeed in making the act of reading highly visible, meaning measurable. These algorithm-driven explicit reading programs give the state and the state's partners cognitive data that's used to justify continued psychometric experimentation on our children at the expense of their actual educations. Kids were reading better before these EdTech programs. This information prefaces my request to the board to not incorporate by reference the Science of Reading evidence-based core criteria checklist into its Board Rule 406, Early Learning Program and Assessments. This checklist affirms not best practices, but worst practices. If the board really wants kids to be readers who love reading, this checklist is not the way. It is phonics heavy and intellectually sterile and transforms reading from a simple art into a complicated business that's bankrupting our children's minds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica. CJ Wilkinson, by Zoom, I believe. Okay, don't have CJ. On to Darlene McDonald by Zoom. We've got Darlene.
Hello, can you hear me
Welcome.
okay?
We got you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Moss, and to the members of the board for allowing me to have this time. I want to take this time, excuse me, to recognize board members who bravely stood up against a lot of political pressure to repeal the administrative rule R277328. We take the time to criticize elected officials when they do wrong. We do not, unfortunately, take the time to say thank you when they do right. I know that you are under, excuse me, a lot of pressure to fall in line. But I, along with many parents, thank you for being thoughtful and measured with your vote and allowing the necessary time for collaborative work. That is what's needed to ensure the success of our American political system. I ask that board members support the changes to R277328 that was written to comply with the new law. I also want to take this time to acknowledge Black History Month. Black History Month began in 1926 by Carter Woodson. Woodson initiated the first celebration of Negro History Week, which led to Black History Month in 1976. Black history was not included in textbooks or taught in American schools until the 1960s. We cannot teach a full and accurate history of America without including Black history. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you, Darlene. Laurel Fetzer.
Good morning, Board. My name is Laurel Fetzer. I'm from Murray, Utah. I would like to address the topic of the science of reading today and encourage you or Utah to adopt the use of science of reading as a method of teaching children to read in our schools. In my learning, the science of reading is a code for intensive phonics and is supposed to be an antidote to balanced literacy. If you look at some of the reports, the science of reading data is presented as being a solution for lower reading testing scores. But if you look deeper into the reading testing scores, the higher and lower scores followed states' poverty rates. Better reading scores are associated with higher economic standards of living and vice versa. Testing is not the best way to improve reading, but the science of reading is focused on improving testing scores. Improving reading is supported mostly by access to books in the home, and choice reading remains the strongest predictors of increasing reading and reading achievement. It would also be important to help build families and improve poverty rates in our communities. If you look at all the numbers and data in the book, 10 Global Trends Every Smart Person Should Know by Marion Tupy and Ronald Bailey, that our trajectory up to 2020, our capitalistic society and freedom-focused education are what are pulling everyone around the world out of poverty with our improved production capacity and many other measured outcomes. If we could keep this trajectory, we could improve the literacy rates in Utah and even globally if we focus on actually getting good books into more homes and help each parent teach their children to read. I also think we need to support curriculum that is based on a free capitalistic economy and not on any socialist, CRT, DEI-focused education. I encourage you to not include SOR, or Science of Reading, as a basis for Board Rule 406 for your standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel. And I think our last comment is from Carolyn Charette.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me speak for a moment on R277-460, the reading rule, particularly lines 90 through 92, which require schools to provide additional instruction to students who are behind in reading at another time in the school day outside regular instructional time or in the summer. This is reflective of a really outdated, I think, reading model where all students are given a core or regular reading instruction regardless of their need, and then what they really need is given to them later in the day when they're pulled out of something important that they are missing, and then there's no provision made for getting that instruction in. I think that, like, let me just explain at APA, all of our students, I'm with American Prep, in a grade band, so K through 3, students are assessed, and then they're placed in their precise instructional level reading group for their core instruction. But that means I have 24 different groups, and I could have 24, technically, different core reading programs for those kids at their level. And so I'm not pulling them out later in the day. And to have a rule written so narrowly that says, this is the model, everybody does this, and then if they need help, you've got to do it in the summer or later in the day where they're going to miss history or something else. I think it reflects some, it could use some work on this rule. I would love to see a more broad and innovative language that allows schools to be innovative in how they address each student's precise instructional needs for reading. And this language right now isn't quite there. I would just encourage the board to relook at the language in this new rule 460 that would better support innovative teaching models for reading, allowing students to receive what you kind of consider core or their regular instruction would be their instruction at their precise level. So a dyslexic may receive a program for a full hour every day that's not, they're not missing something, that is their core reading program. Sorry if that was scattered. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Carolyn. All right, that concludes our public comment. I think, did we have anybody we left and need to double back? Got it? Okay. Thank you as always for making the time to come with us or join us by Zoom to give your thoughtful input on what we're working on here. Greatly appreciate it.